Hi, everybody. I'm Valerie Gilchrist, and I'm broadcasting from Augusta, Georgia. My broadcast is Esther's Purpose, and my guest today is Chantel, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about her as we go on, but I do want you to know that we are on WYTV from Charlotte, North Carolina, right? And we are a nonprofit organization, and we do take donations that are used to broadcast nationally and internationally. Our listeners are across the globe and are encouraged by our broadcast. So I want to make sure that we said that so we would know. And so I want to introduce Chantel to our listening audience today. So glad to have you, Chantel. She has a business that is called Legacy Project, and they help women give birth to best-selling books. The reason they started is from a firm belief that each of us is a word sent by God, and we must accomplish that which he has sent us in the earth to accomplish, according to Isaiah 55:11. They've helped dozens of women from traumatic life experiences while empowering others in writing their book. Their stories are especially unique. They have both millennial pastors that work with them, and there are many layers to their story, and I'm going to let Chantel tell you all of that herself. So, without no further ado, Chantel, welcome.
Thank you, Valerie. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. You are welcome. You are welcome. So, what I want to do before we start, as we talked about earlier, and talk about what you're doing, I want to talk about Chantel. And I want you to tell our listening audience about you and where you come from and what brought you to do what you're doing today.
Great. Yes, so a little bit about my background. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I am presently in Trinidad and Tobago. My husband is Trinidadian. Mm-hmm. And we founded the Legacy Project for the very reasons that you mentioned earlier, Valerie, believing that everyone, especially women, we have a particular message to tell, whether it's overcoming some type of traumatic experience or, just wisdom that we've learned along our journey. And so because of that, we thought that the best platform to help give voice to those women was through writing a book. And since we started our business, so many women have been blessed with the opportunity to finally give birth to that baby on the inside of them. And it's been a very rewarding opportunity.
All right. Now, and that is great. And thank you for sharing that. Through my Esther's Purpose listening audience, from the guests that I have, I want our audience to really engage with us. And how I want them to engage with us is by listening to us talk about the things that we've been through in life, because our audience goes through a lot of various trials in their life. And we want them to stay encouraged and stay the course from hearing from the guest on my show, the things that you went through to actually get you to now, because I want them to leave the show encouraged. So I want you to talk about what we've shared, about where did that giving a voice to people come from for you?
Yes, well, I didn't actually realize this. Sometimes you take for granted your own story, especially when you're so close up on it. And so it wasn't really until I spoke with you, Valerie, that I realized, okay, there is a even deeper reason why I do what I do that's more personal than just wanting to see other women, give a voice to their stories. And so when we spoke, I mentioned that one of the things that I learned from an early age was about advocacy. My mother, she was big on freedom fighting and political injustice and making sure that those who didn't have a voice were given one. So she would take me on rallies and protests and different demonstrations throughout the United States. Just as a 7-year-old, I would be holding up, banners saying "Free Mumia Abu-Jamal" and, different chants that would rally the crowd. And it was born from the experience that we had as a family. My brother, he was in prison and for petty crime, and he was set to get out at a certain date. He was only 18, but he wasn't released from prison because he died. He was in a very racist part of Maryland called Hagerstown, and he suffered from asthma. And so when he was having an asthma attack, the guards refused to give him his medicine, and as a result, he died. And it was a very, obviously, a tragic experience for my family, and my mom in particular. She was raising, it was 5 of us, and then when he passed, it was 4 of us, but we were very small children. And all she remembered from my brother saying is, you know, take care of my brothers and sisters. And so she, in all of her resolve as a single mom, she just, you know, got the strength to move on, but she didn't just go quietly. She actually issued a lawsuit to the state of Maryland for the injustice that occurred with my brother. And so that her strength and her resolve really gave me the courage to say, okay, I'm not just going to live this life as a quiet, you know, humble, meek, and mild young lady. I'm really going to do what it takes to experience the greatness of being able to have a voice and stand strong on your truth.
Let me ask you a question, Chantel. Can you hear that beeping? Did you know do you know what that was? What was going on?
Yes. The beeping, it should be eliminated in just a minute.
Oh, okay. All right. I just didn't want it to distract from what you were saying.
No problem.
I wanted to make sure that really gave voice to, you know, causes.
Absolutely. So she would take me on those trips, and, you know, she won a really big lawsuit as a result of that. And just watching her strength and her resolve and her determination to say, okay, you're not going to silence me, you know, with cash or anything. You're going to allow me to speak up. Even though I wasn't able to speak up and be there for my son, I am going to be there for other people. And so just watching that as a young person and singing the chants and everything, it really set a foundation on the inside that, you know, we can all speak up. We can turn our tragedies into triumphs. And the book allows you to do that. We have helped women who have overcome domestic violence, and now they're using their stories as a platform to, you know, speak around the country, inspiring women. We've had several women who have overcome, you know, drug addiction, and now they are using that power, standing on their story instead of wallowing in their story, to give inspiration and hope to others. So it's
yes. Yeah, that's really encouraging. That's what we want to do here at WYTV7. We want to do that, encourage our listeners through when we're talking to individuals such as you who have been through events in your life that could have actually paralyzed you and stopped you in your tracks. But could you say that it was watching your mother's resilience through it that gave you the ability to be resilient through your life experiences to get you where you are today?
I think so. Absolutely. You know, she was just she is such a strong example of what it means to be resilient. And, you know, that's why we named our company the Legacy Project, because you don't have to die in order to leave a legacy. You can actually live a legacy. You can be the example while you're here, to women who may not even tell you that you're inspiring them, but in your strength, in your resolve, in your courage, each of those truths that you own will in some way impact the world in a positive way. And so watching my mother be that example has allowed me to, you know, not only get out of my tough situations, but really help others, right? That's when you're really, you know, in the position of not just being successful, when it's mostly about yourself, but being significant. And I think that's my call to all the listeners, you know, on the internet as well as on the radio and podcasts, to really ask yourself, are you living a legacy? And you can know whether you're living your legacy by the amount of lives that you're touching on a daily basis.
Well, I want to circle back to what you said. You said that you don't have to die to leave a legacy. Now, that was profound to me, because up until you just said that, when I think about legacy, I think about what after the fact, you know, because that's typically when I hear that term, is a legacy someone left, and they're talking about it after they've passed on. I've never thought about living legacy. That is so awesome, because a lot of us, we don't live our lives with that in mind, that we're sowing seeds while we're living, right? In order to encourage other people. And then after we transition, yes, they can go back and remember some things and talk about those things. But, you know, I need to see somebody who's in the trenches now. Yes. And I can watch you as you live it, because that's what's going to give me the courage, you know, to go through that, just like you were talking about your mom. So as a child, I want you to go back as a child, viewing your mom, because you're talking about, you know, what went on in your home from an adult perspective. Can you take me back to that little girl who, because how old were you when your brother passed?
I was 6.
Okay, so, you know, 6 years old, we have memories at 6.
Yes.
So talk about that from 6 years old. Tell me, at 6 years old, how did you see that with your mom when you, because first of all, that was your brother as well. And then seeing your mom lose a child. So now you're not just seeing mom, you're seeing a woman who's now lost a child. How did you view that at 6?
I didn't quite understand it, but I was definitely very emotional. For not wanting to go to school. I'm the youngest of the bunch. So I remember her having to drag me to school. And then when she finished dragging me to school, the principal would have to drag me to class literally by my hands. And I would be falling and screaming. And it wasn't until I was like, Mom, why didn't I never ever like school? She said, Chantel, it's because you saw me grieving, you saw me crying, and you didn't want to leave me. Right. And so it was just interesting how, like, you could be at such a low state and then come up. Like, even though we experienced that, she never let that stop her. And I just think that's just such a beautiful aspect of the resilience of women. She's not alone. One of our clients, her name is Molly Beal, and her sister was one of the first American women to die in South Africa during the apartheid movement. She's a white woman, and she was coming from one of her African friends' home during the middle of a rally. And when she stopped at a traffic light, there was an angry mob of African people, and they saw this white woman with this black woman, and they pulled her out of the car and beat her.
Oh my goodness.
Not realizing that she was in their country, not for the oppressors, but actually for them. And it wasn't until, you know, they were brought to trial that they realized, like, wow, she was our ally, and we judged her because of the color of her skin. So, you know, it was a very tragic, you know, part in their family's history. But what our client did was she turned that tragedy into triumph. And her company is actually called A Triumphant Me, where she speaks all around the world, educating women about the power of forgiveness. And, you know, so we can never take for granted those tragic situations in our lives. God didn't put them in our journey to be a stumbling block or to bury us. But that same thing that you would expect to bury us was actually the planting that we need in order to grow, to become more than what society says that we can be.
Wow. Wow. That is awesome, Chantel. And I just want to remind our listening audience and our viewing audience that I am Valerie Gilchrist, and this broadcast you're listening to is Esther's Purpose, and you're listening to it on WYTV7, where we broadcast nationally and internationally. And I'm speaking with Chantel, who is my guest today, and we're just talking about legacy. That is just so, everything that you're sharing is really, that's the word that just keeps coming to me, is legacy. Because we don't think about building legacy, because people don't necessarily talk to us that way. So we don't understand the impact of decisions and choices that we make. And so your mom was really instrumental in helping you. I go back to the question that you asked your mom, why did I not like school? And so when she was able to answer that for you, because there's a lot of times that we go through things in life, and it's not that we don't remember it, but what we don't remember is how it impacted us. And a lot of times we don't even know that it impacted us, causing us to feel some kind of way that causes us to make decisions, because we don't really understand the genesis of our decisions, right? And so, so what did that do for you to really understand what your mom was saying when you asked that question, or even I want to go back and what do you think even caused you to ask your mom, why did I not like school? How old were you when you asked her that question?
I was in high school when I asked her, right? Because we would talk about memories, and I remember my principal dragging me to class, and I'm like, why didn't I want to go? I love school now, so why not? And you know, sometimes we literally bury things and as a method of survival. And I probably buried that traumatic experience. But one thing I never buried was, you know, just that strength. I never buried that strength. And so, you know, when I was in high school and middle school, I would, you know, lead massive student demonstrations to advocate for better funding of the Baltimore City school system. So all throughout my life, there were these, it was evidence of the things that were planted from that tragic experience popping up, being a blessing to other people, you know, starting a youth center in Baltimore City, rallying to get better funding for schools. So these different, and that's why it's all about living a legacy. Had my mother not decided to fight, had she just said, well, you know, my little poor self would, you know, all these children, how dare I go and talk to the state about what they did to my son? You know, had she just, you know, decided to stop, where would we be? Where would her children be? Where would the people, you know, all around her who she helped, you know, inspire and talk to as she, you know, drove a 16-foot mass transit bus for 32 years, right? And had conversations.
Wow.
Yeah. Had conversations with tons and tons of people, you know, and just dropping jewels of wisdom. Where would they be had she stopped? And that's what we must ask ourselves. You know, some of the listeners today and viewers may be in a position right now where they don't know where to turn. They may be, you know, experiencing something that could really take them out if they let it. You see, God is always giving us a choice as to, you know, which road we'll take. And he loves us. He loves us so much that he gives us a choice. And the choice is to always stand on his victory because, you know, he won the victory. Right?
Yes. And you know, when you were talking about that, Chantel, what came to my mind was the scripture that tells us where the Lord says, I set before you life and death, blessings and cursing. And then he tells you, choose life. But here's why, legacy, so that not only you, but your seed can live. Amen. And that sounds like what your mom did. She already inherently somehow inside knew that it wasn't just about her living, it was about her seed, her children living. Yes. So her showing that in the greatest adversity, I mean, the loss of a child, I can't even imagine, because I have children and grandchildren, and I can't imagine losing any of them. And then being able to get up from that and still be an encourager to not just my children, but to also to others. But I want to go back even to your children, because sometimes we can go encourage someone else and not encourage our own. But she showed you something that made you look at her and say, wow, Mom, if you can do that, I can do that. Yeah. So that is so awesome. That legacy, that is just awesome to me. Yes. And so I want you to talk about, what are you doing right now? That legacy project. How do you now encourage people to tell their story? Because I know for me, I love to talk, and I've always loved to talk, but I always love to talk to people about them. I didn't necessarily in the beginning share my life. So how do you get them to do that?
Yes, well, by God's grace, really, people just feel very comfortable knowing that we can help. You know, there's a difference between authenticity and folks who are just playing the funk. And, you know, when we meet our clients at like conferences and just have genuine conversations, our goal is to elevate others. And, you know, by elevating others, inevitably, you'll be taken care of. So that's never an issue. But with that genuine heart of just service, you know, I believe Les Brown said it, you know, service to many leads to greatness. And even the Bible says, you know, you want to see the greatest amongst you will be the greatest servant. And so just taking that mindset has enabled us to help dozens of women give birth to their book, and some men too. But we have a particular heart for women. And is we take them through a 30 to 90-day process, whether, you have a book idea or you don't know if you have a book on the inside of you. We'll sit down with you for a coaching session, complimentary coaching session, where we talk about your story and you tell us, the things that have made you cry, the things that have inspired you most. We ask you questions that will really get your mind thinking about, what do I have to say? And once we do that, we build an outline on that 60-minute call or so. And from there, you decide, I want to run with it. I'm ready to go on this journey. And so you submit. You can either write your book, if you're great with writing, or you can submit your content via audio, and we take that content and develop a manuscript, and then it goes through our editing process. So we like to appeal to all different learning styles and preferences, and we just go with you the distance. So it doesn't matter where you come from, how much education you have. If you believe that you have a story to tell, we are able to help you tell it and share it with the world.
Right. Well, here at Esther's Purpose, broadcasting through WYTV7. And again, we broadcast out of the WYTV7 is out of Charlotte, North Carolina. That's what I want to do. I totally want to give voice to people who want to talk about it. I love what you said about the different learning styles, because I'm a talker. If I write, I'm writing because I can't say what I want to say. So my writing, what it does is it helps me say it. Not so much to deliver it as a deliverable in print or text. It's so that I can really get out of me what I really want to say. Because sometimes, you can get wordy or you're caught up in so much emotion, whether it's anger or sorrow, whatever it is. And now what I really want to say, I can't get it out because all of those other emotions are coming up. So my writing gave me the ability now to really I can write out the anger, write out the upset, write out the depression, but then go back and read it and see, oh, this is what was really wrong. And here's what I really want to say to be an encourager to somebody else. So that is so awesome.
Yeah, you would be a great person to actually speak your book. So we allow our clients to take their phone, their little app that allows you to record your voice, and every chapter, you record it, and then we take that and we make an awesome manuscript out of it. So that's something for you.
Yes, that is awesome. Now, I do want to say again, before we end our conversation, I do want to say that WYTV7 is a nonprofit organization, and we do accept donations. There is no donations too small. $5 can go a long way. So if you or someone would like to sow a seed, and would love to, we'd appreciate it. And we count that as our ability from the seeds that are sown into this broadcast to actually help and impact the lives of others. We want to impact, we want to encourage, we want to help people that are struggling, to just let them know that there is a vehicle out here that they can listen to and get that encouragement. And that's what WYTV7 does. And that money goes to us, our ability to broadcast, not only nationally, but internationally. You don't know who your voice, even right now, Chantel, is going to. That's something that you said about your mom, or even writing writing that book, or how to do it by voice, by recording it, to get out of you what needs to come out of you. So that is so awesome. Now, Chantel, I thank you so very much, Chantel, for being with us at Sacrifice Day. What do you want to say in closing to your audience?
I want you to know that success, but most importantly, significance is possible. You may not think that your life matters, but it does. People may not have celebrated you. They may not have encouraged you. But listen, you don't need them to encourage you. You got to encourage yourself. And trust me, when you allow yourself to come out of your shell and just stand up and speak, there will be millions of people who will gravitate toward you. Just like we mentioned earlier, God created you unique. We believe that you are unique sound on this earth. And while you're here, make the most of it. God gave you a unique voice that only He can hear from you. So if you're not speaking, then who's listening? So now is your time to speak. Now is your time to speak for those who aren't able to speak just yet. It's because of you, lives will change and things will transform. But it starts with you And so I hope that my story encouraged you, and I look forward to Valerie seeing the testimonies and celebrating with all of these beautiful people.
Oh, thank you so much, Chantel. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for being on WYTV7 with Esther's Purpose. Thank you so very much. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
My pleasure. Take care.